Welcome. Hello, construction world. Welcome, Christopher from Oryx Consulting. Back with our good friend Lindsay Bowie from Oryx Care. And today we want to do a talk about workplace culture, something very, very important and in my view and Lindsay's view, as important as communication. So without further ado, let's get into this week's Oryx Talk, all about workplace culture.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome back, guys. Christopher from Oryx Consulting and Lindsay from Oryx Care. Welcome back to Oryx Talks. And this week we're going to be getting into everything about workplace culture, something as important as communication. So, hey, Lou, how's things?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Living the dream over here. It's starting to warm up in the US in the UAE, I should say. But
Yeah, it's not really warming up here.
No?
A little, but not. I wouldn't call it warm.
Gotcha. All right, let's get into it, Lou. Lindsay, for those that don't know, Lindsay's writing in the throes of writing a book, shall I say, at the moment. And one of the first topics that I saw in that book was on workplace culture. And culture is a very, very important thing. I know our last Oryx talk we spoke about communication. And communication is the most important thing for any business, any relationship, anything. But right behind that, or I don't know, Lindsay, you'd probably say right side by side that is the culture of the business. And they all go together, really. I mean, you can't have a really good culture if you don't have really good communication. And if you've got really good communication, you should have really good culture. So how would you describe culture, like from a textbook? What is culture? What is workplace culture to you?
It's really the environment that's created for that particular business. So, it's if you create a positive, happy place to work, or if it's negative and lacks communication and you just have a lot of individuals working by themselves and not really working as a team, it's really just the environment that's created and put forth by leaders.
Exactly right. And look, my that's with these Oryx talks, it's kind of like what works pretty well is because my experience being in the field, being working from a mechanic all the way up to an equipment manager on these remote construction pipeline projects, and then Lindsay's textbook approach, it's a really good merge of the two worlds there. So that's why we try and do these talks, to try and get as much information across as possible, not just from a practical point of view, but also from Lindsay's extensive knowledge in this particular subject. I mean, this is what she studied for, got her master's degree in, so we might as well use that knowledge for power, But that's what I was going to say, like from a practical point of view for myself, the best projects that I've ever been on always had the best culture. And the best culture started from the top. It started from the leaders. Exactly what you said. The leaders were the ones who came down and said, this is what I expect right from the start of the job, before the job even started. The project manager would meet with both the construction manager and the equipment manager. This is what I want this project to be. These are my targets. These are my goals. This is what I want for the project, and communicated that down to us. And then from us, we employed our people and the people that or the teams that we put together to build that project. And we all got on the same page to build that project, shall I say. But yeah, it was an environment. It was building that environment of success, I suppose, is the best way of describing that,
Yeah, it's definitely a top-down approach. It's got to start at the top.
Yeah. Okay, so let's work with that. You start at the top. I know the good projects, okay, and that's 2008 was one of the best projects that I've ever been on. we built a magnificent crew, and not just my crew, but the construction crew as well. We had so many problems on that job, but because we had that culture of success where everyone wanted to succeed, or those that did want to succeed, we did, because there was nothing that stood in our way. There was absolutely, we were unfazed by anything, any external source. I mean, it's probably like a higher power, if you will, because it was a common belief. I mean, for those that are religious amongst us, it was exactly like that, because no matter what was thrown at us, we succeeded. We absolutely succeeded because of that, like you say, that top-down approach. How do you build that, Lindsay? How do you, you know, from a textbook, I know from a practical side after years of doing it, but what's the textbook approach to that? You know, how would you go to a company that wants to build success, that wants to have that culture?
Yeah. So when I hear that story, I think, you know, you say that it was like a higher power, but it really would have just been you all being able to count on each other and knowing that 100% you could count on each other. So there was no, if something went wrong, you know, and when you're handling something by yourself and something goes wrong, you panic a little bit, you have nobody to kind of turn to, where in that situation, you guys obviously could all count on each other. So there was that strong belief that no matter what happened, you guys could get through it. So that is really where you want to get to. And to do that, you have to work on it. You know, you have to be, first of all, aware of that. And then you have to work on building that strong team and proving to each other that you can trust one another.
That's a really good point, actually. And that's 100%, because it actually reminded me, I used to play schoolboy rugby when I was a young fella. And that's when you were in a good team, that's exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. You could count on that person to be right beside you, right over your shoulder when you needed him to support you. And that's exactly what that job was. But there we had some, again, from the top down, we put lines in the sand right from the start of the job that this was my job, this was your job, from the top down. So the project manager, you know, he narrated to us, this is what I expect you to do, this is what I expect you to do. There was some grey areas in between, transport being one of them. And the construction manager always liked to do his own transport. I explained, and we had a negotiation as to why it worked better if the maintenance department did the transport, because the particular maintenance that came around all of the transport gear, like the heavy low buoys and things like that. So we drew that line in the sand right before we started. So there was no arguments. So the construction manager knew when he needed a logistics move to be done, he would call myself. And that's where that communication, again, it comes down to that communication, but that ability to know they've got my back. They know exactly what I need, when I need it. And that trickled down from my team then would always, hey, I knew where, say, the lowering in crew was, and they're going to be moving soon. Let me get on the two-way. Let me ask Chris if they've got to move tomorrow. I've got nothing else on. The transport gear's all in tip-top shape. Do you want me to leave the truck out of here rather than driving, another 200 miles into camp, smashing the equipment, or leave it out here and get a lift in? It was just things just clicked and happened and moved so quickly on that job.
So it's half that, which is the communication and everybody knowing what, I've talked about this a lot before, everybody knowing what their role is, but it's also too creating an environment where people feel comfortable to talk to one another, to go to whoever their boss is and say, hey, I ran into this problem, without being fearful. I feel like a lot of bosses get into this, well, I'm the boss, so I have to be harsh all the time, but you just have to create an environment where your team feels comfortable to come to you, because there's always going to be problems that you run into no matter what you do. Yeah. So you have to create that. And it starts again at the top, but it also too, if you're just a part of the team, you have to be somebody that your team, the rest of the team, can count on too. And that, so it just has to be, when people are comfortable and they feel secure in what they're doing, things are always gonna
That's a really good point, because I wanted to bring up about this particular job because there were so many things, like I say, thrown at us. One of them was some union trouble that we had on the job. Now, every project, there's always a negotiation with the unions. For those that don't know, in Australia, in the pipeline industry, you don't need or have to be in a union. It's not like America, where there are union jobs and non-union jobs. There are people that are in a union and people that aren't in a union. They're all paid the same wages, and it works a lot different. It's not like your unions in America. Unions in Australia, once upon a time, had a role to play. As far as I'm concerned, they don't have any role to play anymore, because they're just taking money and they're doing absolutely nothing. But that's my views, and anyone, I don't hold it against anyone that is in a union, not at all, not for 1 second. They're just my views on it, because I see exactly what's happening. Once upon a time, the unions were there and they fought for you to get, better conditions, better money, so on and so forth. But just in today's day and age, no. The union started some trouble that it just wasn't there. It was just pure lies. It was just nonsense. They were just trying to cause trouble to stop a job. Well, the role was just to try and get more money. The guys were paid exceptionally well. We were doing exceptionally well. The project was well ahead of schedule for making a really good bonus for everyone as well. So, what happened was this animosity started growing. But because, like you were saying, the environment was so healthy, people could come and, and started talking like, hey, this is all bullshit. This is rubbish. Like, we're enjoying it. This is a great job. It's the best job we've ever been on. Like, I don't know what's going on. So what happened is between the construction manager and myself, we started talking, and the project manager, of course. And, we didn't see what they were complaining about at all. We started speaking to our people, and the majority of them were like, no, man, like, it's all rubbish. So when they came to us with, well, we're going to go out, we called their bluff. We ordered 2 42-seat coaches and put them on a bus. Those that wanted to go, pack your bags, get on the bus, sayonara Nakamura, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was like, oh, we don't really, see ya, bye-bye. And I've never forgot those people, because it was, we kind of thought, well, maybe it was just a really good job for us at the higher levels, but the production was good. The crews were happy. We asked the crews, and the crews were like, no, dude, this is a really good job. Like, I don't know what they're complaining about. But even with that happening, so we had, I don't know, I think in the end it was like I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 people left the job. We still continued the job. I mean, we had to put a lot of the maintenance team onto operating some of the backfill equipment and trenching equipment and things like that, But it was so, I don't know, it gave you that extra boost of energy to go, we're going to keep this job going. We're going to keep it on target.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do everything that we can to achieve what we set out to achieve at the start. And that actually got rid of some of the negative energy on that job and just made it even stronger, even more durable for that work crew.
That's another really interesting and good point too, because when you have a good culture and a good environment on a job, it will naturally weed out I'll call them like the cancers. You have a couple, obviously it was more than a couple in that case, but you have the negative group. If you didn't have a strong culture and a healthy culture, those people would have just taken over and it would have ruined the whole job. But creating that strong and healthy environment, it was fine. You just got rid of them and the job moved on. And
it made it stronger. That's what it did.
So that, I mean, in the long run, put the work in the beginning, create that strong team environment. And then if something like that comes along, it's going to be easy to spot. And it's going to be easy just to be like, okay, see you later then.
Yeah.
If not, then, the negative stuff is happening in the background and nobody can really figure out why things are the way they are. You just know that, well, this isn't working or this isn't productive, but you can't figure out why,
Yeah, exactly right. And that was something that, you dug deeper I suppose is the right word, because you didn't want to let that big crew down. You know, there was all these little crews amongst the big picture of the pipeline project, but each little crew then dug in deeper. Okay, well, maybe we can't run at 4 kilometers of pipe in the ground a day. Okay, we're only going to do 2 kilometers of pipe in the ground a day, but until we get more people back here, And what it also did then too, and this is the snowball effect again, like what you're talking about, what it did then was it became apparent that if you wanted to come to the job site, then we got rid of the rubbish. So you had to be one of the high level people to come to that project. And that's what we ended up with a higher level of people than what we ever started with. Not to say that what we had wasn't high level to start with, but the work ethic was gone with some of these people just because they were so negative, and they started bickering and all the rest of the negative stuff that happens on a lot of these remote construction projects. But it was that atmosphere, that environment that you were talking about, it was bigger than anything. That environment, because you built those foundations on that environment, nothing could tear it down. It was strong. Strong.
But that could have easily went the other way. If you wouldn't have built that in the beginning, that could have easily went the other way. So look, it's nothing really people pay attention to until it's a problem. And then they're like, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why this is happening.
Yeah.
And then it's so out of control at that point, it's hard to reel back in.
It's like putting out an inferno with a with a little 9 kilogram fire extinguisher. It's just never going to happen. Yeah. And that's because exactly what you say, the environment and building the strong foundations and the strong leadership foundations through there, and having each other's backs. It's so important in that work. It's not just about the work. It's also about the people. It's about the crews and the type of people that we all have troubles from time to time. And not to say that people on that job didn't have troubles. Of course they had troubles at home and things like that, but it's how you dealt with them as a group and as a construction group, I suppose.
Yeah. It's just human nature. You think about families or sports teams or anything, the strongest families are the ones that have each other's back.
Yeah.
No matter 100%. What. Same with, sports teams. When you have a team full of good teammates, those teams are always going to do better than a team full of individuals. So
yeah, we keep saying it all the time, and I can't stress it enough. An all-star team is 100% the opposite of a team of all-stars. You can put all the good players together. If you can't bring them together for one common goal, forget about it. Give up. Hang up your boots.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
which is success.
The
your higher
goal.
power.
Yeah,
it can be success. It doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be the man in the sky. It can be anything. Success is.
And you do have to give people incentive too. Like if you're the boss, you have to give your team incentive. You can't just be like, go out and break your back for me, and I'm not going to do anything for you in return. There has to be some incentive.
It brings me to the next point with that job or that company that we were doing it for. That company came to us right from the start with a vision of building the best pipeline company in Australia. Now, some of us had worked for the best pipeline company in Australia, and it was called and known as the Royal Family. What happened with the Royal Family was they got too big for their britches. They, whatever you want to call it, they got too big and lost focus of what they were meant to do and who got them where they were. That was the problem. And then it became so focused on the engineering department and the engineers and not the people and not the equipment and not what got them to where they are. And unfortunately, it just all started falling apart. It just started growing. Rome fell, shall we say.
Yeah.
So when this other company said, we want to build this is what we want, to the project manager, to the construction manager, and to myself, we were all like pretty excited about this. Hey, let's build the next royal family. And this is what we did. We expressed that to the people, this is what this company wants to do. So even if, like any good team, if if I do my job properly, I used to say it all the time, the next person that I've trained should step up into my shoes and take that role straight away. That's what should happen,
Yeah,
so,
which a lot of companies run into trouble with that, I think.
100%, big time. And
from
again,
what I can tell, they don't.
Culture, because they get so frightened, like, oh, I don't want to give away all my information because someone's going to take my job. Dude, I want someone to have everything that's in my head so I don't have to work as hard, like they're thinking on the same lines that I'm thinking of. So what happened, long story, very, very short here, what happened is everyone thought they were working for this great common goal, and like, oh, this happened with the union trouble and they've all got bust out and they're not going to be part of what they thought. Woohoo, we're building this red hot, ring-a-ding-ding crew. Finished that job. It was one of the only jobs at that time that made money, because pipeline industry in Australia was just, the construction side was losing money hand over fist. It was just ridiculous, the stuff that was going on there. Story for another day. What happened after that was those big bosses in the office on the East Coast decided, well, because that went so well, maybe we don't need to have all the really good, maybe we don't need to follow through with all of our promises that we were going to do to build up this fantastic crew. It crumbled. Like, I mean, it went from hero to zero, one job to the next job, because the upper management didn't follow through on what their vision was. We got it for them on one project. We got it for them because it's what we do. We're professionals at what we do. We got it for them. Management decided that no, well, it's okay. We can do without you. So then when you start, from the construction manager, project manager, and the equipment manager side, hey, this isn't what we talked about. We've built this crew up for you. Oh, well, if you don't like it, you guys can go. Okay.
Yeah.
They just failed to follow through on their promises.
Yeah.
But people like, people that work in that industry, if you're not going to give them what you told them that you're going to give them, guess what? They're going to go to someone else that does. And it just turns into the same rubbish that they've got. To this day in Australia, it's the same rubbish. It doesn't matter. Sure, some people, like, they're very focused on one particular brand, if you will, and I'll only speak about pipeline companies like I know. I go and see those brands and I don't know, it's like that's the, what do you call it? The Stockholm effect.
Oh, the Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome, that's it. Yeah. Because it's like, dude, if you think that this is fantastic, you totally forget about those days that we had back then. So it was so interesting to see this all unfold, and it was, and of course I left the project because it got to the point where they wanted me to break the law, 100% break the law. As a contractor, I would have been in jail quicker than Batman and Robin catch the villain, man. And all I said was, you need to do X, Y, and Z. It was a law. It was a new law that came into Australia. Don't worry, Chris, we'll look after you. No problem. Get your lawyers to put it into writing that when something goes wrong, you're going to support all of the fines and everything like that's going to happen. Never happened. So, of course, exactly what you said before, my big bosses, they didn't have my back. What am I going to do? As a contractor, I'm not going to go to jail for a company, not in a million years. So I leave. What happens with my crew then? So they all disperse and leave and go. Some stayed, some did whatever, and it was just the company, they don't even do pipelines anymore. You know what I mean? They had the best pipeline crew in modern day history and they blew it. They just blew it. From greed, pure greed,
Get you every time.
Again, it's culture. Greed is one of those, it's a sin, it's one of those sins. It'll catch you out every time.
Isn't it one of the 7 deadly sins, I think?
That's it.
Gluttony.
That's exactly what it is. Yes. Gluttony's when you've got a really good camp cook, trust me. Everyone puts on weight and goes home, and mothers and fathers aren't real happy anymore.
Yeah, when you're out there, you should be losing weight.
Should be. When you got a good camp cook, you can't help it. It doesn't happen that often.
Oh, it's like when I'm around you and you cook.
I know, but I do love to
I have
cook.
to work out like twice a day when I'm around you.
That's the secret, isn't it? Eat half, work out double.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, back to culture. Back to culture. Wow, that's still part of culture, isn't it? I mean, like you can have one
that stuff makes a big difference.
Especially in the remote construction, you know, the pipeline construction, you get one bad anything out there, you know, like a bad cook, you know, a project manager that doesn't want to spend the money on the better menu for the workers instead of the cheaper menu, you know, they're all things that go into that culture to build something up.
It's funny that you bring that up, because when I used to work for when I was still working in community mental health, I worked with a lot of teenagers for a period of time, and we would always, when they would come in a bad mood, or they were and these are kids that had gotten into some trouble and kind of had rough backgrounds and things like that, so they had some anger issues. So I would always ask them, we would talk about HALT, which stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So you have to, and it honestly, I use it in my life, and I think about the people around me, and I'll ask them, if you're any of those four things, if you can eliminate those four things, that you're not hungry or eat, what's making you angry? Are you just feeling a little bit lonely, and are you tired? A lot of times those will solve a lot of your
I agree.
Negative feelings.
Yeah.
You know, people get hangry is a real thing. Hanger is a real thing. People get people get angry if they're not eating well, you know, and you know, the loneliness, especially on remote job sites, you know, that could be messing with a lot of people's head, which then messes with the environment. Tiredness, of course, it's really hard, grueling work. So that just made me think of that. I used it all the time with teenagers, and it was usually spot on. It was usually one of those things that we could narrow it down to.
Well, especially with teenagers too, because they're so emotional. Those years, you know, you're learning, you're finding your way in life, and you know what works, what doesn't work, and all these kinds of things. But I can see that, you know, like
obviously it's a pretty boiled down simple thing, but sometimes you'd be surprised, it's always those little things.
Lindsay, that's exactly what you said before. An environment, a top-down leadership approach, and the having people's backs. I can attribute every one of the failed projects that I've been on to one of those three things, and of course communication. One of those four things. Every time. Time. If it's a you know, that company, I should say, that was the Rolls-Royce, you know, royal family, we called it. We had one, and I still think that the record's still there. It's a world record pipeline project that we built in 1997. We had a lot of, and this is how the management thought back in these days. Now, you could never do this in today's society, to be heavily frowned upon. If not, you'd be in jail. But they had a problem with the work crews having a lot of vehicle accidents that were, you know, near misses. You only get so many near misses before you have a major accident. There was some major accidents, but no, you know, no deaths, nothing like that. So the spread boss, who was the big manager in those days, the spread boss worked out that if he put in there, because everyone went with they had a troop carrier in those days. That's how they got the crews to work. They put the big cooler, the big esky in there, and they held all their drinks in it. Well, what he did, each crew got one carton of beer in the cooler, and then the driver got an extra half an hour's pay to drive them home safely at a responsible speed. All of a sudden, 0 accidents. They were gone. It wasn't like we reduced the accidents. They were gone. The boys were happy. They were working like 10 tenths. I mean, it was a world record pipeline. It was 846 kilometers laid in the ground in 16 weeks. You know, like, and I keep telling the story. We only had between, you know, just over 250 odd people on the job, and there was probably at maximum, there was maybe 8 to 12 people in the office. Now we've got 60 to 80 people in the office, and they're always whinging about what coffee machine that they're going to be using on the bloody job. You've got no idea how to build projects anymore, none whatsoever. And they're still going through those dramas. I mean, you heard one of the phone calls that I had with one of those old bosses when I was in the US there, it's just ridiculous. Like, we don't want to pay you for advice, but, just thought you'd help us.
Yeah.
I'd love to, mate. I'd love working for nothing, especially to multi-billion-dollar companies who've lost their way and don't know what they're doing anymore. Just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But that's the world that we live in nowadays. But that's getting back to the workers felt like the bosses had their back. But, all the workers wanted to do was just get home. They were doing really long hours, super dusty environment. Like, the guys were filthy at the end of the day. This is going back in the days, not all the machines had cabins on them, and the umbrella was the sunshade and all these kinds of things. But just that, a carton of beer, that was it. Then to meet the production targets, because they were going so well, he thought, you know what, if they keep this up, we're gonna kick some serious goals here. So if the workers, he put whatever it was, 7 kilometers per day. It was way more than that. But if we got whatever the target was per day, might have been 10 kilometers in the ground per day, every man got a 6-pack of beer. Right. So that was on top of the carton of beer for the work crews, got a 6-pack of beer. Now he's a smart guy. You can't drink a 6-pack of beer every night. Sure, there might be a handful of people that are going to do it every night. You couldn't stock them up. You couldn't store them. You couldn't do whatever.
Yeah.
That guy was getting more money than a bull could shit from the client for getting that job done quicker. I mean, millions of dollars.
By just buying some beer.
Buying some beer. That's all he did.
Yeah.
Every day he bought some beer. Of course, the guy's got a substantial bonus at the end of the job. A substantial bonus. I'm talking, 1997, and I think it was like $14,000 or something like that. It was something.
Yeah.
It was huge.
That's what I mean by incentive, not just beer money, or not just beer.
No, no,
like
exactly.
Real incentive. Yeah.
But those guys understood, the workers understood that the management had their back. The management was smart enough to realize that, hey, we need to give them incentives every day, but we also need them coming to work every day, because if that troop carrier with 8 to 10 people in it crashes and kills some of those guys, our production's gone, our job shut down and all of that. So what can we do to look after these people? So these are the types of you've got to think on your toes in those situations, that not every job is the same. You're going to get things come at you from left, right and center. It's how you react and how you deal with those things, and that always comes down to experience at the end of the day, and what you can get away with and what you can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
New incentives these days, but a lot of people,
well, like a lot of companies will do, you get people or employees can get like stake in the company somehow. They'll use that sort of thing, or there's plenty of ways you can do it for sure.
Yeah. Those that same company offered that to the upper management, like the permanent staff people and that, but it didn't really resonate down the line.
Right. Yeah.
Because they were just the majority of people that build those jobs were just there for the job, and then they'd go again. They were just contracted staff, so to speak. So there was no incentives for them to do it other than the bonus at the end of the job. But a lot of people I've found over the years, yes, there's financial incentives and that. They just want to be wanted. They want to know that what they're doing is appreciated. Exactly right. And again, that's really important with the culture side of things, appreciation and calling people out when they're doing the wrong thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, it goes back to just the small things, and that's all the time, in your life when you're doing the little things. Those are what get you ahead in the long run.
Yeah.
By just, and it takes no time, very little effort to just let your people know that you appreciate them. And obviously you can't coddle everybody, and you're going to have to call them out when they mess up. But when they are doing well and they're performing well and being a good teammate and all that stuff, you have to let them know that somehow that it doesn't go unnoticed.
But that comes, you know, again, that foundation building right from the start, whether it be the start of a project, the start of your company, whatever the case may be, that foundation building, because what I've found as well, if you've got, like we had a red hot maintenance and transport team, I mean, absolutely red hot. If we got someone new in that wasn't pulling the line, I didn't have to say anything to them. The guys in my team would call them out. And I tell you what, I would, my job was easy, man. Like when you put in the hard work to build those good crews, support them, give them everything that they need to do their job. And then, you know, the 3Ds, I like to call it the 3Ds of being a boss. You've heard this many,
I knew
many
you were going to say that.
It works every time. Dominate, delegate, and disappear. Now everyone thinks, oh God, oh, the hard ass. No, it's got nothing to do with that. Dominate. Let them know who the boss is, what's expected of them, you know, let them know that you're there to support them, okay? Let them know what's expected of them, you know, I expect you to do this, this, and this. This is what I want you to do. This is what I've hired you to do, and this is what I'm going to pay you to do. So that's the dominate side. Delegate, give them their jobs, but give them their jobs and communicate it effectively. I want you to do, this is what I expect you to do every day. And then dominate, delegate, disappear. Let them do their job. Don't micromanage them. Don't hover over their shoulder. Don't do anything like that.
Oh, that drives people crazy.
Be there when they need it. Be there when they've got a question, you know, and that's where that open door policy and, you know, having each other's backs and all those kinds of things and that really good supportive network and supportive group. But those 3Ds, if you live by that, I tell you what, you will succeed in whatever your construction job is, you will succeed. Dominate, delegate, and disappear, you know?
Any job really, you know, like you can have a construction company, a small business, anything. If even if like my mom has just a few employees and she's so particular about how she does stuff, she would just rather go do it all herself.
She's missing the delegate part.
Yeah, she would probably she would be a lot less stressed out, I think, if she could.
Because she runs, and we were only talking about this the other day, she runs a magnificent ship, you know what I mean? And there's so much respect between the workers and herself, but there's also a distance between the two. It's not a living in each other's pockets or anything like that.
No, they don't hang out. They don't.
No, but there's always a get together for everyone at certain
usually
points
Christmas time. Yeah,
you know, and it's give and take, but it's providing that work culture, that environment that people love working in, and they'll come to you. You build that, people come to want to work.
Absolutely. Like those hours that those ladies work for my mom, those are terrible hours. You know, they're out. The one was out until 4:00 Sunday morning, just driving people around. You know, but they never, when she gives them the times, they never say no. Yep. She's never been without a driver.
No, and nor will she.
Unless she just has that much work in one night and she has to get a fill in.
Sure.
But But that's just because she creates that. She doesn't delegate things, not the in between work, but
I got to keep working on that with your mum, the delegation side.
Yeah, she'll get there.
She will, 100%. So it's very difficult, you know, and this is something that I had to learn. We spoke in previous videos about this. I had to learn the letting go part. You know, when you move from here to here, one of the hardest things is letting go. Understanding that you need to let go sometimes, because no one's going to do it like you do it. You just got to understand that, you know, and especially if it's your own business, why are they going to work as hard as you? It's your business, you know.
But I think you'll find if you find the right person, they might not do it the exact way that you do it, but they'll do it as well. They might just take a different approach to do it. There's always more than one way.
That's right.
But it's just surrounding yourself with those people.
That's right. And that's where it's so important to communicate, to get that. This is what I want at the end. How you get there, that's the disappear part. How you get there is up to you.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
But I won't accept shoddy work. I won't expect, you know, cutting corners
absolutely.
like that. but that's what I want at the end of the day.
But that goes back to the communication at the beginning and creating that culture.
That's right. That's
So
exactly
it
right.
always goes back to that. So
yeah. Okay, let's get into I've got a company now. I'm in more shit than Batman. I've got problems left, right, and center. I've got negative energy on the job. I've got poor performance. What can you do? How can you come and help me? What can you do?
yeah, so that's the type of work I get really excited about. I love solving problems when it comes to people. So what you could do there is I could come in. We would start by talking with the people at the top. Okay, I want to hear what's going on. What are the problems? What do you think are causing the problems? You know, just get an idea, and then kind of just work your way down. You talk to everybody within the organization, and you narrow down the problems. And it could just be one coming from one place, one person, one situation. It just narrow down the problem, and then we come up with solutions. And you kind of just, I would work start to finish with everybody involved. Yeah. And obviously it would be different for everybody depending on what the problems are, but we could do some leadership training, you know, how to communicate effectively. We could talk about signs of, maybe you have some people on your crew who are struggling with some mental health stuff or maybe some substance abuse issues, and that's what's causing the problems, and just provide education and support to get you through that. You know, it all depend on what we kind of discover through interviewing people, talking to people.
Yeah, you've also got, I mean, it's a form, if you will. It's a
yeah, it's like a survey. Questionnaire. Yeah,
that you can send out to everyone in the group. It could be the project director, it could be the janitor, but you send it out, and the questions are still the same, and you compile that information then, and you'll get some. You know, there'll be some. I don't care what job it is, there will be a common denominator there somewhere. It could be many common denominators, but there will always be a common issue. If people know that it's a confidential, when people know it's confidential, and they can fill it out, drop it in, see you later, and then you can go through that, and then you know, get your little detective cap on, and then you go, aha, this is what we need to address.
Right. I like that approach because of people are more comfortable doing that sort of thing. But I also love talking to people because I get a feel for things then. And that's really how I base a lot of my work. You know, I read situations, and sometimes, and a lot of that is reading between the lines of what people are saying. So I can take both approaches. It would depend on how hands-on that particular company would want, but there's plenty of options.
I think on that as well, I mean, that is something that both Oryx Care and Oryx Consulting can work side by side on those particular kinds of issues, because sometimes I've been on projects where, you know, the morale seems okay and all of that, but the equipment's just junk.
Yeah.
Just shit. And it doesn't matter.
Maybe that's just the problem, and everybody's just frustrated about that.
Like, you know what?
They're annoyed. Why do I even bother? They're shitty. Yeah, because they got to go and work on junk equipment. Work with junk equipment every day. That's going to create some bad attitudes for sure. Yeah. So that's a really good point.
It's one of those things. It can be, you know, it's not just always people related and you know, the way people act and their idiosyncrasies or anything like that. It can be a mixture of everything, you know. It could be the work environment with crews that aren't used to working in that environment. You take a bunch of people from the desert here and go and stick them in the snow over there. I guarantee you that they're not going to get the production like, you know, say your dad's crew of people would get, or anything like that. They duck out of water, man, you know.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, even extreme weather gets to anybody over time. Even my dad, by this time of year, he's so over the cold weather. But
definitely.
But my dad would not enjoy that heat over there. That's for sure.
Oh, no. I don't enjoy
the heat over there. when I'm
Dude,
there.
I've been in hot weather most of my working career, and I don't enjoy the heat over here.
But you're right. The guys who are working in that every day would really struggle coming here, and guys from here would really struggle going there. So
yeah. So that's something, and that's why we really like to push this point to everyone that, Oryx Consulting, our motto, if you will, is helping you guys build a better project. The reason for that is both personnel and equipment methodology side. It's not and or, it's not a one or the other. It could be both. You could need both of our services, and that's the whole approach that we like to take to it. Like there's some projects that, hey Lindsay, this is totally 100% you. They've got the best gear in the world. They've got the latest and greatest technology. There's nothing that I can help them with, but they're getting their problem is getting traction with their people. And
yeah,
I think,
and it's you don't want to rely too much. You would run into problems if you would rely too much on equipment or too much on your people. It's got to be somewhere in the middle.
It's got to be a happy medium. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Technology can advance and get as fancy, as it can, but at the end of the day, you still need people too. So
we'll see on that too, though, Lindsay, like as technology advances, you start removing people. That's the whole point about technology. Your two biggest costs on a project in the developed world are manpower and fuel. That's your two biggest costs on a job. So anyone with half a brain should be looking at, I need to reduce people or fuel. That's how you make money in contracting. It's no secret, people. Like it's just that simple. But this is what I keep getting at all the time, that as you're doing that, you're removing people from an operation. Now, that can upset crews. If you go I'm looking at a vacuum lift picture on my wall here. I posted a picture of one today. When you introduce that technology, you're going from a crew of, say, like over here, it'd be a crew of 20 to a crew of 5. Well, they're all going to be upset because their mates have all gone.
Right.
They're like elephants. They all love holding each other's hands and moving around together as a pack. That's something that, again, as you introduce technology, you need more of your services to help with understanding that. Like this is the way that it's going to do. So you're going to have to change your mindset and change the way that you think about things, because regardless of if you like things a certain way or not, the world is always evolving and changing, and it's how you adapt to that.
Whether you like it or not, and that's something too, where people are starting to take more notice of people and their feelings, and how can we take, you see it all the time, how people talking about mental health more often, and they're getting rid of the stigma and all this. So whether companies like it or not, eventually you're going to have to employ some sort of these services for your people. It's inevitable. So you might as well get ahead of it.
It is inevitable, and it's exactly like technology. Those who adopt it early reap the most rewards.
Yeah. And they've proven that, because there are companies who do look after their people. That study that we always go back to in Australia, the companies who invest in the mental health of their people and the well-being of their people get it. What is it? For every dollar spent, it's a $2.50 return. So they've already proven that it works and that it helps. So
I know that it works because I've been on jobs that are absolutely 100% shithouse, with the worst company, the worst equipment, the worst people. I've left jobs because they've just been so terrible. Like my mental health and my strength is worth way better than that. Plus my reputation, I always thought about that. Like, I don't want to be associated with these dingbats, I was smart enough to think about those kinds of things at the time, but that's just, that's who I am. That's my nature, as you know. But like those kinds of things are so important. They're just really, really important. You can't not think about those kinds of things. Then I've worked for really good people, and I've worked for people that have the culture, have the support, but they've spent, like exactly like what you're saying, they've spent the time to get and build that rapport, So it comes back to one of those things we talk about all the time, and what's one of the big outstanding things to remember from your services is employee retention.
Mhm.
Employee retention costs, if it's a large construction company, mining company, whatever the case may be, it's huge money. Huge money. I think we spoke in one of the videos there about, it's tens of thousands of dollars for a mining company before the guys
Yeah.
made any money.
Yeah.
It's a really big, it's a big problem. And I don't think a lot of companies have put a dollar figure beside it. They just know that it's costing them money.
Mhm.
And I don't know, your services for, it's one of the things that Lindsay and I have spoken about. One of your services is to offer some of these large companies a 1 day or 2 day a week block for people
Mhm.
within their group. We're talking about Western Australian mining companies, people in there that can, during any one of those 2 days, can come in for a Zoom meeting with you. It could be a
Mhm.
supervisor, it could be a manager, it could be one of the workers, it could be one of the operators, whatever the case may be. You allocate a sum of time for those people. Now, that wouldn't even cost them the cost per month of 4 of these people leaving.
That, and I know a lot of companies will they'll just do maybe a once a year training for speakers to come in, and those speakers would cost more for a 30-minute talk than what something like this would cost.
That's right.
And you'd actually be solving a problem instead of just looking like you're solving a problem.
Exactly right. And that's why you and I both get so annoyed about this stuff, because people want to tick the box. They don't actually want to solve problems. And there'll be someone watching, I want to solve problems, watching this, like, I definitely solve problems. Okay, well, prove it to us.
Yeah.
I guarantee I'll call you.
People just want to look like they're doing it because it's trendy. It's mental health and things like that is cool to talk about now and trendy to talk about. But from what I can tell, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Lindsay, we keep saying it over and over and over again. They want to talk about it. And that's all the bloody hell they're doing, is talking about it. You've gone out, you've set something up to actually provide solutions for these people, the most at risk. Part of that has been to set up for the companies. I mean, that's where it started, was to help the companies. So this, the suicides and things like this, which is the end result of everything, you were trying to cut it off at the pass up here. Well, then that turns into, well, hang on, there's so much of a problem over here, I'm going to have to set up both in parallel, and you need to be able to have something, a proper service where someone can call up, and get that one-on-one help prior to it being a problem, That's where the solutions are. You have to provide solutions. And we keep saying it at Oryx Consulting and Oryx Care, it's all about solutions. You can't just say, oh, well, you're doing it wrong.
There are long-term solutions too. When I start looking around a lot, there's all these helplines and this, and those are just things, they're great, and I'm sure they've saved tons of lives, but that's just putting out a fire. That's really not, if there's no follow-up, or if you can get ahead of it before that point, that's a long-term solution.
That's right. And that's where it comes back to that culture within your group.
Absolutely. If you have that culture and the people you're working with, I've said this before, it doesn't take a master's degree to notice when somebody's struggling.
No.
All it takes is just a little bit of awareness and knowing what to look for.
Yeah.
So if you have that culture where everybody is spending a lot of time together and they trust one another, you're going to pick up on those things.
That's right. Because it's a close-knit, it's like a football team, a sporting team, a very close sporting team. Like they will never let one of their teammates down. I go back. You talk about sport,
in any way, especially not that way. When they think that they're going to hurt themselves, or they're just, nobody wants to see their buddy have a hard time.
No, that's right. And it's you and I, we see a lot of. I think that's because of the searches that we do, and the constant drive for finding more and more information on this stuff, so we can become better educators on it, I suppose is the right word. we come across a lot of pages on social media, and look, I know that you're nice and reserved and all of that, but I got to call that bullshit out. There's people there that are offering services that even you with a master's degree in this would not do, because it's unethical without a proper license in a particular region to do that. And these are people with zero education from what we found in this region at all, but because they think it's trendy and because they think they can work from home at the, by the beach, that they're going to have this wonderful thing. It infuriates me, because it makes things even worse. Then we come across other places that are trying to do something within the mining industry, and their message for the weekend is, oh, thank Christ the weekend's here, let's go and get shit-faced. This is the whole problem about what you keep coming back to with substance abuse and all that. Hey, I'm as guilty as heck. I've been there as well. But these are the problems working remotely. It's fine to think that way if you're average Joe Blow and that's what you want to do. I've got no issues with that at all.
But don't put that out there for other people who very likely have that sort of problem. I'm just going to to call it the way I know that it is. There would be tons of people who have not just a drinking problem, but probably a drug problem too. And they come to your page obviously for support, and that's what you're telling them to do. Yeah.
And some of these people,
that's a huge issue for me.
It's a red flag.
I get so angry. Yeah.
But we even did the right thing to reach out to them, just to, hey, listen, maybe you don't know what you're doing, and maybe we can help you.
And they probably don't. Don't.
That's right. But you reached out to them to say, hey, listen, we can help you with this stuff to get the right message out there. You've got a good platform and all that. Crickets.
Yeah.
Absolute crickets. Too busy because they want to sell merch to actually help people. And that's where, I'll call it out every day, because you know me, I don't care how big you are or whatever. I'll call bullshit out when it's bullshit, because that's all it is, and that is going to be, you mark my words, that will be another cancer in this industry that is going to go and grow like wildfire,
Yeah.
Oh, I see he does it. I could do that.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're all trying to outdo one another with some content on some of these platforms.
And meanwhile, it's like the most unhealthy advice you can give people. 100%. It's scary.
Yeah, it is. And that is frightening. I mean, we've been through, I think out of the last 2 years, I think we've literally just found one guy just recently, didn't we, that was actually led with a personal experience. And, it was really, it wasn't
industry related, but
no,
had the same sort of issues that we come across.
Certainly did. And trying to, he put his own personal story out there of a very negative thing that we do when we're drunk. And it was fantastic. Yeah, I watched the video, I read the message. It was a big, long message and all that.
And I actually I messaged with him a little bit, and just a really, really, really nice guy with a good message. And that's what I love to see,
Me too. And that's why, I saw that and I thought, this is fantastic. Everyone loves a personal story, obviously, regardless of whether it's a positive or negative one, but using it as an educational process, and that's why I try and give as much.
At the end of the day, we all have issues,
100%, we're human.
We do. Every single person that you come in contact with has struggled, is struggling, will struggle. Yep. There's no shame in it whatsoever. The only shame is not trying to fix it.
That's exactly right, and that's the message that we really want to get out there is, 1 hour it could save your life. 1 hour could change the trajectory of where your life goes as well. 1 hour of your life can turn your 5 years of substance abuse, and whether it's just alcohol or whatever, like me, like the stuff that I used to do. Or you can get your life on track and do it for a reason, stash some cash away, which is what you should be doing, and all these kinds of things. 1 hour of your time can change that,
You know,
It's
I
not.
would have done, I mean, I went through therapy myself when I was in my, I think when I was 18, I started. And if there would have been something like this, then I would have easier, online. I didn't have to go anywhere. So,
Less intrusive.
kind of shorter term, less intrusive. I would have definitely
Yep.
done that for sure.
Yep. See, that's what I mean. And I keep getting back to my experiences in the remote construction industry, but it's the same for remote mining. You know, if you're in remote mining, you finish work and you go back into your little box, man. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And you've got your internet
Yeah.
and you do whatever you want to do. Take an hour out of a month. Get a one-on-one with Lindsay, get online, and she'll talk you through some stuff and some struggles and give you some little pointers and some ways to deal with certain things and try different things. Honestly, it'll change your whole trajectory of where you're heading to. It really will.
And it's not just, you know, it's not that I just have an education, you know, I've been there too. You know, I don't know what a lot of the things that these guys have been through on job sites and things like that. I know enough. I've never experienced it myself, but I have had my own struggles. You know, at the end of the day, I'm just a human too, and that's what you'll get. It's just a conversation.
That's right.
With a person who understands what you're going through.
But a person with the right education to give you the right, you know, I could phone my mum if I wanted support. It's getting the right help, and the right advice to say, and it's not intrusive. It's have you tried this? Can I suggest maybe next time when that happens, X, Y, and Z? You do it to me.
Or did you know this? You know, like a lot of people don't even realize, say, you know, we were talking about the alcohol stuff. I had so many people when I was doing like drug and alcohol assessments at one point, and we would go through, I would ask them a bunch of questions, and then I would kind of tell them, you know, this is what a drinking problem looks like. And I would give them the signs.
Yep.
And they had no idea. I would have people, I would always ask them, do you do anything physically dangerous after you've been drinking? They were like, no. And I'm like, well, you're in here because you got a DUI. So do you think that
there is that?
So do you think that driving was physically dangerous? And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like people, it doesn't even click sometimes because it's such a normal part of our society, a normal part of our culture to drink to excess, to, you know, to make unhealthy. It's so normal. It doesn't even click to people. So, you know, that's kind of where my education comes in, where I feel like, well, these are the signs, you know, these are the signs of depression. You know, are you having trouble getting out of bed? Is your energy low? Are you not eating? Are you eating too much? You know, it doesn't even click with people sometimes because they get so used to feeling that way that they don't, it becomes normal.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, like if you want to build that culture on your project, on your mine site, whatever the case may be, you can start with just something as simple as that, as simple as having a resource available to your people that's not going to cost you a gazillion dollars and some specialist flying in that, you know, the afternoon after they've flown out, everyone's forgotten.
Those people have those places, but a lot of times you don't.
Agree.
You don't need it. You know, when you have like a big accident on a job site, I can see flying in a trauma specialist, things like that, like those type of situations call for things like that. But a lot of times you can solve a lot of problems with just something really basic.
You know what?
Which is what I want to offer. You know, I want it to be basic and I want it to be simple.
Yeah. It's about consistency. That's what it is. Anything that we do in life, if you want to be healthy, you've got to consistently eat healthy. You've got to consistently work out. You've got to consistently walk or swim or whatever the case may be. You know, you want to look after your equipment. You have to consistently do little things often to look after your equipment. You know, like you can't just wait for the big bang and then go, oh, shit, broke.
Yeah.
People are the same. Yeah. Crews are the same.
Our society does not help either because everything is instant. Everybody wants things right now. You know, so that's been a recipe for disaster all in itself. So consistently taking care of yourself,
consistently having a 1 day a week allocated to your group at the end of the month, you know, to your managers, you get a report, you know, and Lindsay will put something together. these are some common things that we've been dealing and discussing with people. You're not going to go into, this person, or this person. Sure, if you find someone that's like, hey, this person's at risk, we need to do something immediately, you're going to do something like that. But it's just a report to say, hey, there's some common themes that keep coming up in here. The managers mightn't even know, and it could just be that quick, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. That's something that we can address straight away. It's not going to cost us $1 million. Hey, that's fantastic, consistently looking after people.
And my end goal too is to make it eventually where they just, I teach them and they know what to do. So they don't even have to keep me long term. I don't want anybody to become reliant on me long term. I'm always there for support down the road and things like that. But the idea is to teach your managers, your supervisors, whoever, how to handle these things. So you don't have to keep paying me to do it. It's nothing, it's not rocket science what I do.
Once you've built that culture, once you've built it and you've got the foundation set and you've got your key people and all of those kinds of things, it's a perpetual engine.
Yeah. Like and then it's just maintenance. You get you hire new people, you want them to come and talk to me, then we do that. It's just like preventative maintenance, like what you always talk about.
Preventative maintenance as well. But you can come into a group that if you've built that group up, there is nothing stopping you from coming in once every 3 months, once every 6 months, going around for a day. You know what? Everything's tip top, or we should just address this. I'm
starting to see this kind of come back up again. It's
the same with what I do. The whole thing about Oryx is to help you, give you the tools to do what I used to do and what you know how to do. That's the right way of describing it. I'm not there to hold your hand the whole time. My whole philosophy is to come and help you achieve the success that I achieved when I was building projects. Like it took me a long time to learn that, and I went through a lot of shit to get there. I want to hand that on so you can do it.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll come back and I'll check that everything's, running tickety-boo, as they say, and all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, it's to give you and your people the knowledge to do what I used to do. That's what gives me the greatest pleasure in life.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my biggest pet peeves is people taking advantage of companies or people and just kind of milking them dry for everything they can and continue to let them use the services when they don't really need them anymore. That's not the approach I take. I want to help you fix problems and then move on and help more people fix problems.
That's what it comes to. At the end of the day, you've got to have that, okay, well, I think my job is done here because of we've achieved this. Do you believe that your crews are now more, harmonious, whatever the case may be? They're the things that, if I'm a manager and I've hired you, I know what I want to see at the end of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's going to be hidden. If you've got someone that comes to your group every week and they're still doing the same thing, you've hired the wrong person. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's the culture. It has to be a foundational. You got to want to do it as well. You got to want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, give up, because all you've got is a hobby. Let me tell you, that's all you've got.
Well, and that's why it always has to start at the top. Like those are the people who have the most at stake. So if it's not coming from the top, then it's going to be a really long road for you.
Yeah. I mean, one of these big companies, our friend was telling us from Southeast Asia there, they got some new CEO for the group, and the first thing the CEO did was hire this external consultancy firm to come in at hundreds of thousands of dollars and come in and wanted to uproot everything, and you need to change this, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. The first question I asked to this gentleman who'd been with the company for 42 years, did they come and see you and ask you anything? No. I rest my case. Rest my case. The first thing that those kinds of people do, there's a time and a place for those kinds of people. But if you're not going to speak to the people who know what the problems are, I left that group in 2006 because I knew what the problems were. The same problems exist today.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
2000.
That's why those people make it hard to be a consultant. Because then everybody assumes that, like, they hear consultants and they're like,
I can
they get kind of
guarantee I could go back to that group and save them money tomorrow. But for some reason, they know how to do it best. You know, you heard me when we were on the phone and gave them 4 ideas that were going to save them, I would say, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on that job.
Yeah.
Yet I asked, did you want a week of consulting or a month of consulting? And they said no. Like, stupidity is stupidity, and it's
you just want it for free.
Those type of companies, and you mentioned it there before, sometimes they're too big, you know.
Yeah.
And that's
what I was sort of getting at. Then it just it becomes so hard to control at that point.
Yeah. They need to strip it back into the groups that they had, you know, the different divisions they had and all that, which they still have, but they need to address it all and get out of the.
It's not that the company's too big. There's too many people. There, you know, like there's
noise,
too many opinions and too many individuals.
Top heavy. You know, the people on the ground know how to save them money. That's what they've been doing forever and a day, and that's what they failed to understand. That gentleman that has been with them for 42 years built them to what they are today. Yeah. But now they know better for some reason. It's just mind-numbing.
I think it's just a common problem, because I was talking to someone the other day and they were kind of complaining about the same thing, that they had an issue, like a manhole cover got ripped off on a job and it was going to become a problem. But of course, in the office, the one company they could come out to find to fix it wasn't a approved company that they had worked with. So they had to fill out all this paperwork. Meanwhile, a small problem is turning into a big problem. And because they didn't have the paperwork from that other company. So they had to do all this while this problem is just borderline going to be huge.
Yeah.
Out on the job site, but in the office, like even in the office, they had sent an email to that company and the email didn't go through and they didn't even notice.
Yeah.
So
funny story, same thing though, you know, like it's just so much bureaucracy and bullshit. The bigger you get, you need to find ways. The successful companies find ways to limit that bullshit. Mm-hmm. Successful companies, you know, they really do, because they've known, because they've gone from the ground up, and that's why they were so successful for so long, that group, because the guys that built it worked up to the top of it, the top of the food chain, you know. That's why they were successful. But then as they got more experts in, then it started falling apart, and it ridiculous. Really funny but interesting story. And I'll always remember this story, and I like to say it all the time because it just makes the biggest point. Toothpaste factory makes toothpaste, puts the toothpaste in those little cardboard box and all of that. They had I read this years and years and years ago. Whether it was a true story or what, don't really care, because it's so on point to what we're talking about right now, and culture and speaking to the people and communicating with your workers and the people on the ground, you know, the grunt people. They had a problem with the so many toothpaste boxes that didn't have the tube of toothpaste in it. So basically, when they packaged up the big carton, there were so many empties per 100,000 or whatever the case may be. So they got a consultant in, an expert, to come in and work out how they were going to fix this problem and how they were going to find out, you know, we can't have all these, you know, the customers were getting upset, they're getting all these empty toothpaste boxes. So they got the consultant who came in, the consultant designed this new equipment, and it was approved, and it went here and it went there, and, you know, approvals left, right and center. And what they did, they decided that on this conveyor belt, they were going to put a weighing system, and they knew that a tube of toothpaste in a carton was going to be X amount. So then when an empty one came through, alarm went off, red light, stopped, so the guy could remove the empty carton. Then he had to go around the conveyor, boop, turn the on button back on, and away they go again. Cost them millions of dollars. Anyway, they're going through, they're checking everything. They've got 100% record, 100% record with everything. It's just like, it's good, but like that's, you know, we're still selling, you know, millions of toothpaste. So there should be at least something going on here. They go down to the factory floor. What do they find? The alarm's not going off anymore or anything like that. Well, that's really strange. How are they finding this stuff? They go down and ask, and then and look at that guy who was there. He's got a fan, a $20 fan from Kmart on the opposite side of the conveyor belt, blowing. So when the empty boxes come, it just blows off the empty box. They said, why aren't you using this $1 million system that we've built for you and all of that? He said, well, every time it stops the whole production. I've got to walk around here. I've got to go and reactivate it. And then I've got to come back around here and do all of this. This is a big, long project. I just got that. These people were like, oh my goodness, what? How much did the fan cost you? He said, $20. $20 to ask the man on the ground, and this is what it comes back to, culture. You don't need third parties coming in that aren't going to give you what you need at the end of the day. Sometimes you need to start with the people that you've already got, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's always the people on the ground too that are going to tell you the most. So you have to look after them. Yeah.
And that's where you're really good at getting that information from those people to understand them, okay, and give them that, you know, I don't like saying, you know, it's just a calm voice, you know, someone that's there to listen. And that's what you know, you're an expert listener. There's no question about that. So they open up to you. People open up to you because they, you know, you're not confronting or anything like that. You know how to ask the right questions and dig and get to the bottom of things. So
I'm good at making people feel comfortable. That's one of my my strong suits. I just was having this conversation with my mom yesterday. There was an issue in my family, and everybody in my family called me. Every single person in my family called me yesterday. And I got off the phone the last time and I was like, why do they all call me? My mom's like, because you're so, like, you're easy to talk to. They all know that they can call you. And it just kind of, it never really hit me before, but I'm like, they have to call me for a reason, I guess. They all feel comfortable enough to pick up the phone, know that I'm going to answer, and kind of talk them off that ledge.
And that's exactly what it is. You know, you've got that side of it for the people where you need to talk people off the edge sometimes, and not big ledges or anything like that, but sometimes it's just understanding, giving them a few little tips and tricks and letting them.
And that was the thing yesterday's like the problem was, it was a minor problem, but of course in their head it's a big problem. And I just kept saying, it's gonna be fine. You know, it's everybody's stressed out. It's been a long few months. You know, just take a deep breath. And that's all it was. I didn't give them any other tricks, nothing crazy, you know, really in detail. And then everything was cool. Everything was chill by the end of the day.
That's it. It's just putting out those fires. But you want to try and stop those. The whole point about our discussion today is trying to, you know, build that culture.
You don't want it to get to that point. It's different dealing with family, but
they're little spot fires. You know, and that's what building culture is all about, you know. So I suppose, just to recap on that, Lindsay, and some of the really good points that have come up during the conversation, you know, of course, communication, that's right at the tip of the tree there, you know, but leadership, it's an environment that you're trying to build, and that's an environment of everything in and around your environment as well. You're building that strength you're building resilience is what the right word is, you know, but it's a communication from the leadership down into that environment. That's what it is. I mean, have you got anything else just to add on that? I think there was 4 points we touched on before, but
I feel like we've covered it pretty good. I always catch things after when I'm rewatching it, but of course, if anybody has any questions, they can always reach out, comment, message, call, whatever.
For sure. It's really important to us that, you know, more companies build that culture. It's a perpetual engine. It will run itself, you know. The people will,
and then the industry thrives, you know.
100%. If that culture is done properly, you don't have those negative mental health concerns of, you know, the really high suicide statistics and all those kinds of things. It comes back to a culture, building the culture, retaining the employees, looking after your employees, you know, giving incentives, you know, listening to their concerns, having support networks like Lindsay's, you know, in the really remote areas, because they might be strong and then one day they're just not, you know. So,
and then when things come up, I haven't talked to anyone, at least at home, that works in the construction industry lately that isn't nervous about what's going to happen. You know, it's everybody's on edge. Everybody doesn't, am I going to get laid off? Are we going to have work? Whatever. So when things come up like this, because this is always going to happen, you know, I know like the world issues right now seem huge, but it's going to happen again. It might not happen at the scale that this has been for quite some time, but there are going to be issues again down the road. So if you can create that culture and things like this come up, you're not going to have a bunch of nervous people coming to work every day.
That's right.
Worrying, and then that increases the chance of accidents happening. That increases substance abuse. All of this stuff goes hand in hand.
But even as a foreman, leading hand, whatever, you don't want to be asked every day, shit, have I got a job next week? What's happening? Every Friday asking if you've got a job next week.
That wears on you too. Like that that whether you think that isn't affecting you, it is, because then your subconscious is like, oh man, do they have a point? Am I gonna have a job next week? You know? So it's just humans. It's human nature.
Yeah, but it's having the tools and the capacity to deal with that, and knowing,
to deal with it,
understanding what it is when it comes at you. That's what this is, right? Lindsay's given me some tricks to cope with these situations. Right, I'm onto it now. You know, and that's what it's all about. It's not about changing who you are or how you do things. It's about giving you the tools to go about your job and understand things better, so the little things stay little things.
We're always developing, or we should always be developing. You know, I know 100%. For me, every day I try to develop in some way, whether it's not letting something small make me anxious or whatever. Like I work, there's something about me that I try to develop every day. So that way, 5 years from now, you know, I'm better than I am now. Like that should always be the goal. And it's not 100%. Changing. Like I'm always going to be who I am. And so and everybody's going to be who they are, but you can improve, you can become more resilient or more reliable, more trustworthy. You know, you can, there's endless ways that you can evolve.
100%. I agree with that. And it's probably a good way to wrap this up, Lindsay. I mean, culture is a top-down approach, you know, but you want to be a part of it, you know. If you come into a company and they do have a good culture, it lifts you up. You have to perform. You have to raise yourself to the bar that company expects of you. And if you don't, it's not your bosses that are on your case. It's generally your fellow workers, because they've got something good and they don't want to wreck it. They do not want to wreck it. You know? That's why it's so important. You might think that, you know, like some of the companies that we've spoken about, you know, people are just like 4-inch grinding disc, wear them out and go and get some more. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. If you're still doing that, you may as well get the profits and just keep.
They're gone in most parts of the world anyway, and I think they will be gone for good one day. So. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, look, I'd probably wrap it up there, Lou. It's probably gone long enough, I'm sure, but we could talk forever about culture, because it's so important, and it's something that really helps your business grow, develop. It wins work. You know, it gives you that reputation. I mean, work needs to come to you rather than you going and constantly battling to find it, and then you're constantly working against the next guy that wants to pull his pants down more than you want to pull your pants down for winning it.
For the job,
for the job. So let the work come to you. Build that culture. Let Lindsay look after you, help you build that culture, and help build a resilient workforce. You know, that's what's going to keep your companies running through lean times. You know, people understand when the company's suffering because they feel a part of it, you know, and that's what you need to build. That's your culture that you need to build within it. like when our the company I was working for, when all those people, we put them on the bus, all the other people stood up.
Yeah.
They felt proud because they wanted to achieve for the common good of everyone, and that's what it's about. That's really what it's about.
That's what will happen.
It will, 100%. Been there, done it, tried it. It works.
Yeah.
All right, Lou,
Definitely.
thanks very much for your time. And look, as always, Construction World, if you've got any questions for myself from Oryx Consulting or Lindsay from Oryx Care, reach out to us. LinkedIn's probably one of the best ones. We always obviously post onto Instagram, but LinkedIn's really good for communicating.
It is, yeah. It's a little bit more personal, I think.
It is too. Yeah. And there's, leave a message on YouTube. It doesn't matter. For those of you that are like this type of content and you like what you see and you want to learn more, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, make sure that you get these videos as we put them out. Of course, we're going to post them onto our social media so you guys have them. But yeah, I hope that really helps you guys about just shedding some light on good culture, workplace culture. So as always, guys, we're here to help. That's what we do. We're here to help you build a better project. Thanks very much for your time, Lindsay. Thanks for sharing a lot of your knowledge.
My pleasure.
Okay, till next week, guys. Stay safe. Be good.